Hello everyone and welcome. Yes, my name is Arrowfire and welcome back to another episode of All Talk, No Shock. And today we're going to look at something that's crept in the news a little bit. In between the release of the Rise of the Beast second trailer and a new Transformers Titan figure being released, it's easy to forget that we had a bit of an update and a casting list for the upcoming film in 2024, animated movie of Transformers 1. Now, we know very little at this stage and it's very much open to speculation. But let's look at what little we do have, where it's likely to go, some questions we would like answered, and I'll give you my theory along the way. No shock. So first off, this is something that's been touted as the first animated movie for 40 years, which is depressing. 40 years or so that the original Transformers the movie, animated movie, came out in cinemas, and now we are going to have a new one. This is going to focus, as is a theme now seemingly, on an early Cybertronian war or early Cybertron experience before Autobots and Decepticons, really focusing on Optimus and Megatron being brothers in arms. What else do we know about it? Not too much else, but we do have a casting list and where they're really going with the characters. So Chris Hemsworth, everyone's favourite muscular Australian thunder god, is going to be playing a young Optimus Prime. Brian Tyree Henry will be voicing Megatron. Chris Hemsworth we do know playing Thor in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but Brian Tyree Henry is mostly known for doing a lot of theatre work and a lot of TV work and film work as well. Has appeared in such things as Boardwalk Empire, Joker film, Godzilla vs Kong and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. But then looking beyond that, we've got some other interesting names. We have Scarlett Johansson, who is actually going to be voicing Elita 1, just named as Elita, but Elita 1 nevertheless. John Hamm will be voicing Sentinel Prime, and some of you will be familiar with his work. Keegan-Michael Key will be voicing Bumblebee in whatever term of voice we're going to get a Bumblebee, and Keegan is no stranger to voiceover work, particularly on an animated scale. And rather surprisingly, Lawrence Fishburne will be playing Alpha Trion. Now, we actually are going to get Alpha Trion in a movie, which I think that's got to be a first, surely. I can't think of any other instance. We've had Sentinel Prime before. But Lawrence Fishburne, Scarlett Johansson and Chris Hemsworth, just to pick out those three. Now, what's quite interesting to me on that is that's not going to be the cheapest wage bill for a cast. That's some big names, that's some high profile names, but that's not uncommon. Think back to the Transformers movie, the original movie from the 80s. Now, okay, Transformers was in its pomp and had a big juggernaut behind it. It had a lot of money being put into it from both sides, but that didn't have a small cast either. We had the likes of Leonard Nimoy, Judd Nelson, Orson Welles, not to mention the original cast from the cartoon. So to draw exact comparisons, whilst this looks very star-studded in a modern day, it was star-studded back then as well. Probably a similar wage bill. You couldn't compare, but that's quite telling when you look at it from both sides, that these are some very big names taking up some very key roles. But that's one other thing I want to go on to about a role change. One thing that's inescapable about this is that we are not going to have Peter Cullen voicing Optimus Prime. Now, they are going for a younger Optimus Prime. I don't think many people are going to argue it's going to be very difficult for Peter Cullen to do a young Optimus Prime at his advanced age now. But I wonder, is this a bit of a shift? This is a shift, I think, in terms of Transformers storytelling. But think of what the approach is now. We've had reboots of soft kind to medium kind, or even hard in some cases, where we're telling the story from the beginning again. That's not too bad, because we haven't had many instances of it before, but you think we've had the War for Cybertron series, we've had a reboot of the IDW comics, and now we've got a reboot, if you like, of a film franchise. We're going back to the start. But other than IDW, we haven't seen an awful lot of Cybertronian life. We haven't seen how it started and how Megatron and Optimus were side by side, other than a few instances in flashback segments here and there. This is going to be a dedicated film. Really at the start of the Bumblebee film, we're going to see it getting to that point. To have younger cast members really plays into that. But I wonder if this is a big shift that Hasbro are really trying to make now, where you got a generation like ourselves who grew up with it and now trying to get their kids, their generation into the franchise. You reboot it, and started again with new cast members, for example. So that seems to be a bit of a direction we're going. We're not trying to pick it up from 1984. We're not trying to pick it up from the end of The Last Knight. We're not trying to pick it up from any point like that or a continuation. We are starting again for a new wave of fans. I think that's the approach that Hasbro want to go with Transformers as a whole. I think this younger cast, and from the beginning a War Dawn episode, if you like, turned into a feature-length film, is what they've got in mind. The film is going to be directed by Josh Cooley, who is known for doing, again, more animated work and has recently done things such as Toy Story 4. But looking at the back catalogue, it again screams more animated work, much more 3D animated, again, like a Toy Story. And I wonder where we're going with this. Is this going to be kid friendly? And if this is someone's first project to Transformers, I'm happy to see what they would do. I cried out for this before though. I do not see why they didn't stick with Travis Knight for a bit longer. Really what I liked about it, other than the fact that there was a lot of G1 Easter eggs locked in there, Travis Knight was a self-proclaimed Transformers fan from birth. That's what he grew up in, that's what he liked, and that came across in the work, that came across in the film. And I really enjoyed Bumblebee. I'll go on record to say it's probably my favourite Transformers film. I enjoyed it that much. So why one and done? I know Bumblebee as a premise was one and done, but Travis Knight could have carried on and done a few more in that style and I would not have been unhappy. But again, I'm open to trying out something new. I'm looking forward to seeing what this approach will be. Now it is worth pointing out, Michael Bay is listed as a producer for this, so we are probably going to get those designs that we have known and come accustomed to since the mid-2000s at this point. We also have Steven Spielberg on there as a producer as well, and he was also involved in the 2007 movie. That could be a heavy influence or a limited influence. We will not know until the outcome has reached us. So with only 6 names really confirmed at this point, we don't know if the cast list is going to be any more than 6. If we're going so far back, maybe the screen times and the dialogue lines will be exchanged between those 6 characters. It isn't Autobots versus Decepticons, so you haven't got to have 6 aside. We're going to have a group of characters really showing the start of the Civil War. My only real concern to this is, will this undo what we've been left with? So as I say, we haven't had much of a prequel to this, but there has been tie-ins, mostly in comic lore, mostly in a form of fan fiction almost, tying in bits along the way. We know War Dawn, we know how Optimus has come to be, we know he starts off as Orion Pax, but if you look in the IDW incarnation in the first instance, you really saw what life was like with Megatron in the mines and then glowing into a gladiatorial pit and then starting up the Decepticon uprising and showing how it was against the Primes and how Optimus admired him at first but didn't agree with Megatron's ways. All of these things, and how there were a lot of friendships and even brotherhoods between Autobots and Decepticons before the Civil War took place. Does the film play on that, or does the film erase that? Will this put a big filler in the gap that's been left for so long, but at the same time undo some of the work that we've been piecing together over the last 30 to 40 years? And I think that would be such a shame, because it's been something that's been added to. And whilst it's good to see a new movie, whilst it's good to fill in the gaps, there's been a lot of hard work, particularly in the comic generation, of creating these fillers for us and satisfying our curiosity. What happens here? What would happen if a film comes in and just splats on top of that and replaces it? Again, I'm not damning what comes. This is going to come out in a year's time. They're going to spend a great deal of time on the storyboarding, but I hope it treads a bit carefully and incorporates what's been picked up on the way, much like the live action films have been doing, much like the Bumblebee film in 2018 has actually brought a lot of the 2007 and onwards of those films along with it, and it's being woven into Transformers lore going forward. I'd like to think they'll go that way, and I'm certainly happy to give them the benefit of the doubt in doing so. That's just a little hope of mine that it does come to pass. And really that's it. We know the film is animated, but we do not know if we're talking anime style, 2D style, or if we're talking a more War for Cybertron 3D CGI mode. I imagine it will be that. I imagine it will be the latter. But we will know when it comes out, when we start to see some trailers for it. I think we're a bit of a long way off. I think we've obviously got to see how Rise of the Beast does, but this is quite interesting, isn't it? That we've got 2 films planned within 2 years, already 12 months apart. That shows, again, quite a seriousness to take this to cinema. And again, this is actually allegedly going to cinema. I did wonder when we first heard about this, will this just go straight to a streaming service? Ultimately, it will go to something like Paramount Plus, but it goes to the cinema first. And again, they'll make more money, they'll take much more at the box office, but it shows the willingness to put a bit of money behind this. But let's hope it comes out good in the end. But what do you guys think? What do you want to see in this upcoming Transformers 1 movie? And how far back do you want to go? Do you want to see an inclusion of some characters? Would you rather just see a complete clean slate and something completely different? Do we want to go into the real depths of history of Cybertron, the history of transforming, rewriting what we have come to know and love to this point? Leave a note in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think. But thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you on the next one.